Welcome to today's ScaledOn Session, ScaledOn's monthly event where we talk about all of the marketing happenings impacting your business and how you can optimize them to help your growth. Today, I am joined by Dominic, ScaledOn's Director of Amazon, who's going to talk to us about Prime Day results and all of the lessons and learnings from Prime Day and how you can use those whether or not you sell on Amazon. Welcome, Dom.
Hi, thanks, Courtney.
Um, Real quick housekeeping pieces on our end of things. ScaledOn Sessions are our monthly event where we talk about all sorts of different things related to marketing. So sometimes about SEO, sometimes about paid ads. Today we're talking Amazon, but all the different components that can come into marketing are what we like to cover on these ScaledOn Sessions. So if you aren't already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can be notified of upcoming ScaledOn Sessions. If you are catching the premiere of this session, we also have the team live in the chat to answer your questions. So drop us questions as you have them and we will get you answers. If you're catching a replay and it is no longer the premiere, feel free to reach out to us on scaledon.com. We are always here to answer any questions that you may have about anything that we cover today or anything related to marketing in general. So reach out to us and we are always happy to help and take a look at your specific circumstances and what we would recommend that you could do differently to help your business grow. We're going to talk Prime Day today, but we're going to talk Prime Day in the context of Amazon sellers, but also in the context of those off of Amazon. But if you're currently not selling a product on Amazon, there are things that you can do with Amazon's data to target buyers off the Amazon platform. So we'll talk a little bit about that throughout the session. So if you're popping in and you're like, hey, this doesn't relate to me, I don't sell on Amazon, indeed it does. So stick around and we'll be talking about all the different ways that Amazon and selling on Amazon can benefit you as well. Dom, specifically today, we're talking Prime Day 2026. And I know that this Prime Day looked a little different than prior years. So set the scene for us. What was different this year? What are kind of the key takeaways that you want to jump into?
Yeah, so for sure, this year, first time in over 5 years, we had an early Prime Day. So we had a Prime Day that landed in June, which is big difference from the usual July format. And there's a few reasons for why this may have happened. Maybe Amazon was trying to get some results into Q2. Maybe they were trying to, stop, kind of get ahead of some of the other retailers who've been kind of following on Amazon's heels by holding similar events, during the July window. But it's a big change for a lot of brands, right? We're now looking at July, which is going to be a very different shape to July last year. So everyone's kind of got their eyes keenly focused on those year-over-year numbers. But again, it was an extended event. It was a 4-day event, similar to last year. A big difference between this year and last year was that there was definitely a little bit of fatigue on that 4th day this year. Last year, it seemed to stay sustained throughout the 4 days. 4 days is kind of a marathon in Prime Day terms, even though we are getting more and more used to the extended Black Friday, Cyber Monday type events. You might be thinking that it's a little bit early to be thinking about Prime Day. We've just had one that's just happened, but the fall Prime Day is not that far away. And Courtney and I were just talking before this session about the fact that, it is a little bit like sort of studying for an exam that you can't cram for last minute. A lot of the results that you do see on Prime Day come from the work and optimizations that you've made long before the event. And I really mean long before the event. So we're talking in months and quarters in terms of the results that you're going to see. So it really is the time to be thinking about your Q4 and getting everything ready.
And look, I think let's kind of set a scoreboard type example here to help everybody understand the differences that we see with that preparation, right? So overall, I think what the statistic that Amazon has come forward with thus far that I saw anyway is that overall the market grew about 5% on day one. Obviously, multi-day event. To Dom's point that he made, we saw it soften, by day 4. But overall, the market grew about 5% on day one. On average, the brands that we manage that were prepared saw about 53% above their normal baseline. So when we talk about preparation being key, there's a big jump there between 5% and 53%. Again, that's on average. Nearly all of the brands beat the market. But that preparation is key, right? It's the same event, the same economy, but very different outcomes, and that's where that that preparation we think is a deciding factor. So, what did the winners do that everyone else didn't?
So the main bit of prep, we got to talk about it, is just on the inventory, on the stock side. It's the first place that you might not go to when you think about Prime, but it is absolutely being prepped and having the right amount of stock just before the event. So you've got to get your stock in before those inventory cutoff dates. So I just have to mention that because there's so many tactics and so many strategies for kind of getting your promotional piece right. But the number one piece that sits behind all that is making sure that you have got enough of what you need to hit those numbers.
And I think that's key with preparation too, especially when you look at, some of the different events, world events that can happen in the US that can impact getting inventory in. And we've seen a lot of them over the past 10 years, right? So lots of different world events and historical events that have impacted shipping times and deliveries and things like that. So it's another preparation is key piece that if you wait until the last minute, there's really no guarantee that, your inventory might arrive depending on where you're sourcing from.
100%. And if you've been selling on Amazon, like you say, Courtney, even over the past 5 years, you're going to know all about those inventory woes. But yeah, that is a key piece to get in place first.
Yeah. So let's bridge really quick. If you've never sold a thing on Amazon, so if I've never sold a thing on Amazon, does this still apply to me? Like what's the lesson that applies to everyone?
Yeah. So look, if your business has a busy season, a holiday rush, back to school, end of quarter push that you're doing, like this is the same muscle, right? The businesses that win the big moment there decide how they'll win before it arrives.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about how the businesses that prepare win, but so often we learn from the mistakes we make, right? So what is a mistake that you see over and over? Because I think this is another one that I think applies to businesses on Amazon and off Amazon. What's that mistake that you see businesses make over and over?
Okay, so this is going to sound really simple, but it's capping ad budget correctly. So not capping ad budget at a normal day's spend. And the reason I mention it might sound quite simple, but we've seen businesses who've come to us after the fact, that are quite sophisticated businesses with lots of moving parts, and they've missed out on a ton of sales during the event because they've capped spend at a normal level during the event, and their ads have not shown throughout the course of the day. And so the way that it works on Amazon, of course, is that you have that daily cap. So you can run out at a certain point in the day. And as we know, it's a long event. It's a long time period throughout the day as well. And that's the number one piece is kind of losing that visibility.
I think that ties, that ties really strongly to what we were talking about with preparation, because so often with budget, like it really does mean that you need to be looking at your budget and forecasting in advance to potentially bump that up across prime days, right? So that you're not running your same average daily spend and running out. So that's another preparation piece. Like there's preparing with inventory, but there's also preparing with money, preparing with your ad budget so that you can make sure that you're in a position to spend what you need to spend to get that growth. And for those who may be a little leery of that, again, when you look at 5% growth versus an average of 53% growth, I'd like to think that wins in the long run, right? Like it definitely seems to have in layman's terms, you get what you pay for type correlation.
Mm-hmm. And I think as well, just to mention, in case anyone's curious about those numbers, typical recommendation is sort of 50% above your average spend for the past 30 days. So we're not talking about double or triple the spend on those days, even to achieve those levels of growth.
Yeah, super important detail. Because I think that there are probably lots of people, right, that think to themselves, hey, I'm a relatively small business. I'm trying to grow. Like I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars or some crazy number, to put into an ad budget here. So I think that's a valuable point to make, right? That we're not looking for, for crazy investments. We're not recommending crazy investments. We're about at the midway point of our 30-minute session today. So I'm going to pause for what I like to, call pause for station identification. If you're around my generation, you might recognize that from TV, but if not, I am Courtney. I am the director of marketing here at ScaledOn, and I'm joined today by Dom, who is our director of Amazon. And this is a ScaledOn session. ScaledOn sessions are our monthly YouTube videos that we premiere on YouTube with our team live in the chat on the premiere day to answer any questions that you may have. But they live on YouTube all the time. So you can always come back and revisit any of the topics that we've covered on the YouTube channel. If you think that these topics may interest you, please do subscribe to the channel. If you have questions for us and it's not premiere day, we are always available to you on ScaledOn.com. And we like to do what we call opportunity reviews, which is where we will take a look at your marketing and come back with what we think the elephant, our ScaledOn elephant, is in your marketing. What is holding your marketing back from the growth and success that you might be looking for? So opportunity reviews are the complimentary review that we will do of the marketing in your business, and come back to you with our findings. So you can also request one of those on ScaledOn.com. But otherwise, join us here monthly for the ScaledOn Sessions. We cover a range of topics. Today, we are talking Amazon, but we will talk about all different things marketing throughout each of the ScaledOn Sessions. So subscribe, come back and join us again. Hit us with any questions that you have. We are always here to help. We are going to jump back in, but pivot a little bit, because today we're talking Amazon, but we want to talk Amazon in a way that is beneficial to even those who don't sell on Amazon. So I'm going to pivot a little bit into DSP, which I think I'm going to ask Dom to kind of give us the layman's terms explanation of what Amazon DSP is, and how it really ties into those who don't sell anything on Amazon.
So Amazon knows a lot about what people buy and browse, right? Through its ad platform, you can show ads to those shoppers on other websites, apps, streaming, even if you don't sell on Amazon. So that's Amazon DSP, their demand side platform. And, it basically allows you to access the largest streaming TV and broadcasters across things like Fire TV, but also connected devices like televisions at home. And I guess to explain the audience piece a little bit more, we're all more familiar with the touch points, right? Personally. So whether that's waking up with your Alexa alarm, you're shopping through the Amazon app, actually getting those packages delivered, listening to Amazon Music, anyone who uses Twitch, any of the sort of premieres, or importantly, big sporting events that happen on Prime. So Amazon knows a lot about both you and what's happening in your home, how many kids you have, etc. They have tons and tons of signals, like literally billions of signals that they're able to combine into very, very, very niche specific audiences that you can then target across this inventory of different surfaces.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, Amazon DSP, or their demand side platform, you'll hear us refer to it as DSP because demand side platform is kind of a mouthful, but is really being able to take Amazon's data, all that purchasing and buyer behavior data that they have from the people who do buy on their platform, and target it off platform to their other products. So I don't know about anybody else. We like to catch a NASCAR race, which is on Amazon Prime, whether it's on Amazon Prime, whether it's any of the different levers that you just mentioned. You don't have to sell a product on Amazon to be able to leverage that data and get your ads in front of those audiences on those different platforms. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, that's 100%. And so another mouthful would be that is what we call non-endemic advertising. So you are not selling on the platform, but you're absolutely selling or advertising your products and services across all of those different touch points.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge opportunity that most business owners aren't aware of, because if you think about it, right, like I think for me anyway, I always thought of Amazon as just a selling platform. So if I don't have a physical product that I intend to sell on Amazon, I can't get in front of all of the buyers who use Amazon as a primary shopping platform. I think there's quite a few of us who shop Amazon first, whether it's as a research tool before we go directly to a website or anywhere else. But even if you're just researching on Amazon, it's capturing your data. It looks at what you're searching for. It knows all the different things about you to what you just mentioned. And so that's a huge targeting win, for a business to be able to target that audience and target those signals, but not have to sell a product on Amazon. So now that we've introduced the concept of DSP and, maybe provided some new information to folks who didn't even know that it was possible for their business to advertise to Amazon's audience without selling on Amazon, how does a business determine if it's worth exploring, if it's for them?
Yeah, look, it's actually not for everyone, right? It does take a real budget to do well. So there were at one stage high minimums of like 50K per month, which then dropped to 20K per month, which then dropped to 8K per month. If it's, so it does make sense for certain margins and buying cycles. If it's not a fit for you, we would say so. But if you've like felt boxed in, you've been spending on Google, Meta, Facebook, this is a door I think that most businesses don't really know is open.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't, as someone who works in marketing every day, right? If it wasn't for the day-to-day job and the expertise that Amazon brings here, I wouldn't have thought it was possible to get in front of that audience. But I do think that that's a huge data pool that's important to get in front of. And I think that it naturally raises a question around Prime Day, because that's when, obviously, if nothing else on Prime Day, Amazon is gathering a ton of data from buyers who, maybe they don't shop on Amazon a lot, but they're certainly going to check it out on Prime Day to see what deals and things that they can get. So it's gathering even more of that data that can benefit other businesses, whether or not you sell on Amazon. So I think that that's important to talk about. I think we've covered a lot of different things here. So let's kind of summarize a little bit, maybe add in some additional things. Like we started off talking about Prime Day, talking about the lift that we saw from prepared businesses. And we talked specifically about inventory preparation. And then we bridged a little bit from that into budget preparation. Is there other preparation or other pieces that you would want to kind of close out today by letting people know, are important for preparing for Prime Day so that they can tie into other businesses and their preparation for their big days as well?
So I made that analogy earlier, right, about sort of preparing for an exam. It kind of is the case that you do want to have everything well optimized. So that means right down to your titles, bullets, your images, your A plus. Because what we see when Prime goes well is we do see this step change, right? So your average sales per day for the past 30 days following a successful Prime Day, where you see numbers like that 53%, results in a much higher baseline following Prime Day. So your typical days then after the Prime event will be a lot higher than they were before. But what has gone into that is all the different pieces that you'd expect on Amazon, beyond just the inventory, beyond just the ads, onto the actual optimization of your entire listings. And it's kind of timely right now because Amazon throws something at us every month. But they've just announced an update to how titles are going to work on Amazon. So we're going to be moving from a 200 character title down to a 75 character main title. It's going to have a big impact again. And so they're always keeping us on our toes. But it's important to get that right now before the deadline at the end of July so that you have that in place.
Absolutely. And that is definitely true, right? Like there's two really important points that I think you just made. The first is that the preparation for Prime Day has tailwinds that carry you much beyond Prime Day. So, it really is an important just overall business plan to think of as worthwhile for Prime Day, but even beyond that, because certainly the signals seem to point that your ongoing success, continuing that Prime Day success really ties directly into that preparation. But then I think there's also the adaptability that you just mentioned, right? So coming out of Prime Day to have Amazon announce a big change is not unusual. And so part of that preparation and that adaptability, drives success as well. What I will say is ScaledOn does have, and Dom can speak to this, does have a tool available to you to help you adapt to the title change that Amazon is making. So Dom, talk to us a little bit about what we have available for free for anybody who may want to make sure that their business is adapted to the title change.
100%. Yeah. So we've needed to do this because we've needed to do it for all of our existing clients. And so we've made this tool available, which is a title audit, which you'll be able to find the link for. Effectively, what it will do is give you that audit of which titles are going to be compliant, which are not, and then give you those suggestions for how to keep your core search terms in the indexable parts of your listing, which is going to be really key, as I say. Like the rate of change from Amazon has been accelerating. We've noticed this, especially over the past 12 months, from the number of tools and changes to kind of the dashboard and the back end of Seller Central. Just this week, we noticed that Amazon had changed for a number of our clients the get help and support route through Amazon. This superseded a change that came only 3 weeks prior, which would help you get the buy box back in an event where you had lost the buy box. So they released an amazing new tool And then 3 weeks later, they released an overlay, which has caused that tool to completely vanish on some accounts. So they are testing a lot at the moment, and maybe that rate of change is coming from the rate of change that we're seeing within AI, but we're seeing a lot of development happening in the back end of Amazon. So it's becoming increasingly important to kind of stay on top of some of the changes that they're making.
Yeah, look, AI definitely has a reverberation across all the industries and all the platforms that we're seeing for sure on a day-to-day basis. But I think that's a really good point that, Amazon change is accelerating just as much as every other industry. And sometimes it may be in ways that businesses aren't initially aware of, because I think a lot of the platforms aren't always the best at communicating these changes, and they kind of just roll them out and wait for you to stumble upon them. So, I think that's a great way, a great tie-in for us to say that we're here to help. So as Dom mentioned, there is a title audit tool. The link for that will be available on your closing screen here at the conclusion of our session. But we're also always available for any questions. So if you have other questions unrelated to what we've discussed today about Amazon, about any component of your marketing, you can reach out to us on ScaledOn.com with any questions that you have about any of your marketing or specifically with Amazon. But I think, to kind of wrap up today, we've talked a lot about preparation being key for Prime Day and in general. There is another Amazon event in the fall, and it is certainly not too soon. Time flies. It is not too soon to begin thinking about how you're preparing for that event. So if you have questions about those things, if you want to have us take a look and see how prepared you are, reach out and we're happy to do that. But otherwise, Dom, any final thoughts or pieces that you would have about Amazon in general, about Prime Day, about DSP, about all of the awesome things that we've talked about today?
Yeah, so to recap, preparation beats reaction. Don't cap your budget on the big day, and your buyers exist beyond any one platform.
Awesome. Folks, feel free to grab your free opportunity review. That link and the link to the Amazon title tool that Dom recommended will be at the conclusion here on the screen that's going to pop up. Otherwise, we hope you will join us again for the next ScaledOn session. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube or sign up for the ScaledOn newsletter to be notified. We'll cover all the things impacting your business from a marketing perspective, and we hope you'll join us again soon. Dom, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Courtney.
Take care, guys.